Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Solo Experience. I'm your host, Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about, when we get to it, a little bit about speakers and compression, because I think this comes up a lot, and I don't know that people know what they're getting themselves into. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Latest thing, we had a stream on Monday. I think it was Monday. Maybe it was Tuesday. I think it was Monday. We talked about projectors. We did a projector comparison over the weekend on Sunday, and we compared the Epson 5040, the Valerian Pro 2, the Epson LS12000, the JVC NZ500, and the Epson QL 3000. I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, Epson 9 LS9000. That was the one right after the Valerian. We went through a bunch of them, did them at Jonathan's house, and we'll recap on that here. Let's talk about that 9000. Yeah, let's talk about that here, because I stayed away from talking about that on Monday, and we talked about it on Monday night, but let's talk about that here. So I had pretty high expectations of the LS9000 when we went into it, and I'm a big fan of Epson. LS9000, at least in comparison to the other projectors, did not do very well. The other ones, the LS9000, or not the LS12000 has an ultra black panel. The LS9000 does not. The 5040 UB actually looked better on SDR content. Now, HDR content, it looked like dookie because the 5040 does not do processing very well. But if you put this is a stretch, but if you put a video processor, say a MadVR Core or MadVR home theater PC or something on the Epson 5040, it'd be an excellent projector. It's good. Processing sucks. Motion, awful. We did the motion comparison of it against everything else. Its motion is catastrophically bad. I don't know if something was wrong with that projector or it's really that bad. It kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping, which is indicative of the processor running out of headroom, and it has to stop the motion in order to do something else. It was oh so bad. Ridiculously bad. Very easy to see in the old clip that we were playing when they're spinning in a circle. It was very bad. So Epson 5040 did good. It's starting to show its age. I like the projector for its price point, right? It's really cheap if you can find one. You're not but finding one new, but if you can find one, find them used probably for $1,000 or under all day long. They're bulbs, but it's a good projector for the money. But I think we're starting to get to a point where there's better options. Now moving into we're going to do these in price order. Moving into the Valerian. The Valerian is a lot better than the last time I saw it. I still wouldn't buy it because I see the rainbow. I see the RBE. So it's a no-go for me. But that's because that is a symptom of a single chip DLP. That's just how they work. So I can see it. No-go for me. It doesn't mean that it's a bad projector. I just won't use it because of the rainbow. Now, it is a lot better than what it was. Far less artifacts. The EBL is very good. I mean, it's got really bad native contrast because it is a single chip DLP. I think it's like 1800 or 2000 or something. So not great. It's on the same stage as an LS9000. But with their EBL, it looks far better. It does far better. So for the $3,000 price point, it's a really, really good option. I don't like that it doesn't have a motorized lens. I don't like its mounting option with the screw, but for the price point, you're making compromises. And those are the compromises you're making for that price point. Really good projector for the price point. Its tone mapping, really good. Its tone mapping's great. I would choose that, sorry, Epson, every day of the week over the LS9000. The LS9000's image, maybe if it's only bright content, and I'd have to measure and look at the interesting contrast, but in comparison, the LS9000, the best demo clip we looked at was X-Men First Class, I think it was, when they're fighting the aliens. It fell on its face. It was milky. It was flat. It was not a great experience on the LS9000. The Valerian did a great job on that scene. every day, every time, if you put those two projectors in front of me, theoretically, if I couldn't see RBE, Valerian. So now moving up to the LS12000, things reverse. The LS12000 had it side by side against the NZ500 and the Valerian. The LS12000 just did better. The Valerian has better tone mapping. No question. It's got better tone mapping. Whatever they're doing, the tone mapping on the Valerian is better. But the Valerian, and somebody mentioned this in a previous comment when we did this video on Monday, it felt like it had, and I mentioned this on Monday night, it was missing color volume. And somebody said, hey, change these settings. And John went and changed them on his projector. John loves his Valerian. So he's very up to date on settings, what needs to be done. He's in the flow on that projector because things are changing rapidly on the Valerians. He went and changed them and said, I didn't really notice a difference. So, and he actually noted some negatives. So the color volume, and this may be the tone mapping and maybe something going on with the firmware. I don't know. I can't say that it's potentially something wrong with the projector hardware wise, because I think the hardware is able to do it. So it seems like a software limitation maybe right now. But the color that it was putting out, it felt like there was far less of it, like it was washed out in comparison to all of the other projectors. And we even toned the Epson down to bring it more into par with the NZ500. Now, again, this is not a full-on scientific comparison. This was, we're going to put these on what we have found to be their best modes. They were all on 100% laser. So it wasn't, we didn't break out the high-end calibration gear, but that was a limitation that was holding the Valerian back. If they fix that, I think it'll make it a lot better. That was a holdup for me, was its lack of color. If you put it next to the, like on that same scene, X-Men First Class, everyone looks like, and we said this on the stream on Monday night, everyone kind of looked like a ghoul. And I said I was going to look past color, but it was too consistent for me to do that. Something was going on, and I don't know what was going on. Could have been a setting, could have been something with the firmware. It could be theoretically a hardware limitation. I don't know, but something was going on because everything was lacking color. You put it next to the LS12000, the NZ500, the QL3000. Yes, I realize the QL3000 is way more expensive, but it was there because Jonathan had it in his projector collection. So we looked at it. The main comparisons here, you're like Valerian, LS9000, LS12000, and NZ500. Those are the main ones that you're comparing against each other. They're different, right? Your LS12000 and NZ500 double the price point of Valerian. I get that. But it's the ones that come up in that comparison a lot more often. So Valerian, something was going on with the color. The LS12000 did shockingly better than I thought it was going to on the low APL scenes. Blew me away, even having the NZ500 right next to it. Now, caveat there is that when you're doing things like putting projectors right next to each other, you are washing them out. So the LS12000, when the NZ500 was up against it and any other projector, you were lessening its native contrast. So you were making its black floor better, or worse, excuse me. But when you're looking at it on what the color looks like, detail that you're looking for, granted that can be impacted. The LS12000 did very, very well. The NZ500 in every dark APL scene, low APL scene, won every single time. Like unanimously, everybody like JVC, no question, JVC, no question, JVC. Won every time, as it should. But when you got into the ones like Ad Astra that was bright but had black, it became almost the same. If not the LS12000 with its bit more color. And maybe you could do this with the NZ500 settings. Again, you could mess with saturation. You could mess with calibration. Color, and the reason I've tried to stay away from it is you can theoretically adjust it. I brought it up with the Valerian because it was too consistent across everything. And the things that people said to do to fix it, it didn't seem to fix it. So LS12000 did shockingly better than I thought it was going to against the NZ500. The LS9000 fell flat. Now, it doesn't mean the LS9000 is a no choice, like don't choose it in any capacity. If you put it up against the Valerian, here's what I will say. The Valerian beats it in almost every way, with the exception of whatever was going on with the color. I don't know. Don't crucify me for that. The LS9000 did better on the color. But when it comes to native contrast, because of the Valerian's EBL, the Valerian destroyed it. No comparison there. One thing that sets it apart, though, is that the LS9000 has a motorized lens, so it makes it a lot more flexible. The Valerian, watching John try to position it on a mount, it was a struggle, right? It has to be X distance away. Now, you can do things with its screen, I'll call it screen boundaries, that kind of stuff. You can absolutely do that. I just don't like that it doesn't have the lens adjustments that you're getting on an Epson. So if there's anything that you're allowing the LS9000 to win, it's the chassis. But in virtually every other thing, with the exception of color, the Valerian won. And if I couldn't see RBE, I would pick the Valerian over the LS9000. No question. Now, if you put it against the LS12000, I pick the LS12000. It just had a better image to me. And if you Yeah, it had a better image. It's easier for me to set up because of the lens handling. You get lens shift, you get all of that stuff. Now, I understand that there's some software stuff in the Valerian. I just like the LS12000 more. I think it did better with the image. Even when you're comparing them low APL, they were pretty close. The Valerian and the low APL stuff did win. Did win. Its tone mapping and its laser dimming is really good for what they're doing. But it was close enough that the things that it fell flat on, I would take the LS12000. Again, the LS12000 was the star for me because it did better in a lot of things that I thought it would struggle with. Like if you went to another demo we did was Godzilla vs. Kong when they're fighting Mecha Godzilla towards the end. The LS12000 actually looked the best outside of the QL3000 of all of them. Color, ANSI, or Intrascene, it just looked the best. And there were comments at the beginning of a certain character, I don't remember his name. He's a black gentleman kind of fading into the background because it's a dark scene and his skin tones with what was happening, they thought, oh, you can't see him. You could absolutely see them. So the tone mapping on the LS12000 in comparison to what Epson's done long ago they've done an excellent job. So I like that projector. I think it's got more all around going for it. And when we put them side by side in these scenes, again, I don't know if it's the color. I'm going to keep saying this because something was going on. I don't know if it was settings, but it held the Valerian back considerably when you put it up against other ones. And the settings we were using were the correct settings. John's had that projector for a long time. He's into the Valerian thread in current settings. He's on the current firmware and all of that. So I don't know what was going on with that. But taking that into the equation, the LS12000, even compared to the NZ500, won in a lot of situations. The NZ500 dominated when you got to Starfields. So in Avatar 2, when the ships are coming in and you saw the Starfield, holy crap. Like, oh my God. What an amazing, amazing image. And hold on. I'll be right back. I thought I heard a door open. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I have 2 dogs upstairs, and I've had a hesitance or a tendency, not a hesitancy, a tendency lately of not shutting the garage door all the way, and I thought I heard the alarm beep, like there was a door open. So I had to go check to make sure my dog didn't run out. Was it Starfields? The NZ500 destroyed everything when it came to Starfields. Not even close. Like, no comparison. And I got to put my foot down here. And it could be settings, because I've heard that this projector is supposedly amazing at this with its laser dimming and that they're close. The Valerian against the NZ500 was not close when it came to Starfields at all. The NZ500 destroyed it. I would actually argue in a lot of those scenes that the Epson got significantly darker than the Valerian did. And could have been settings, because people have said this thing, I've seen the comparisons done on website or on YouTube, that projector is being compared to the JVCs and stuff. And dynamic contrast, it may be equal, but for native contrast and its ability, even using dynamic to get darker, the JVC destroyed it. No question. If you've got a small screen, because the NZ500 lacks output for brightness, the NZ500 is the projector to choose. It's interesting, it's native, its processing is amazing. Like, on a small screen, you got a 120-inch screen, maybe pushing it to like 130. That projector, I don't know how you beat it, the NZ500. If you've got a bigger screen or want to save some money and you're compromising a little bit, want better motion because the NZ500 has no motion processing, need 4K 120, LS12000. If you want to spend significantly less than either of those projectors, Valerian. No, that is my buying advice to everybody, at least from what I've seen in my lifetime so far. That's how I would dictate how to buy that. You got a bigger screen, you need motion, 4K 120, potentially color volume, because it seemed like the not color, that's the wrong word, but the output of color, because of the software that's going on, though you could increase saturation on the JVC, the Epson just seems to do more of it. Maybe that for some reason, I don't have a good reason for that. So if those things are what you want, LS12000. You got a small screen, don't need the motion, want the processing, JVC. You want to spend less and get as good as you can get, significantly less, because it's actually half the price MSRP wise in a lot of situations than the LS12000, Valerian. So that's how I would do that. That's how I would stack those up. Let me go through chat here. Sounds like my rankings. So Paul says, sounds like the ranking would be QL, LS, JVC, Valerian, LS 9000, JVC. I wouldn't say that there's a ranking, because things changed, right? Projectors are good at other things. I mean, you have the Jonathan going on with which projector is better for which scene. Which one I would choose as an all-arounder, omitting the QL, because the QL is significantly more expensive. So omitting it, because I would choose the QL over everything because of the brightness. I like the LS12000 for a value proposition for money, but the Valerian's really good for the money. For $3,000, which I think is what it's on sale for a lot of times, it's pretty good. I can't because of RB, and I really would caution people to check to see if they see RB. A lot of people say, hey, there's no RB, and I think they may not see it. But if you're a person that can see it, that is not the projector for you. And sure, there may be screen combinations that you can do to lessen it, but then I think you're making compromises, and you may be better off doing a different projector at that point. So yeah, Paul, maybe that for how I feel right now. The LS12000 is just a really good value for money, especially if you can get it at the right price. So William says, I don't think they will replace the LS12000. They don't have to have great value projector for consumers anymore. I think they will leave us. Oh, so you'll think the LS 12,000 will go away and they're going to leave us with the 9,000 in QB? Maybe. I would doubt that, but it's possible. Paul says it's strange, and he's going back to the comment I made about color. Many say that, and it could have been settings. I don't know. And that's why I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt that we had somebody that knew what they were doing with Valerian. And we even took comments from the previous stream and put them in, and it didn't do or fix the things that we were looking at. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, though, and say it was settings, but I'm not sure. Willie says, I enjoyed your informal projector test. It would be interesting to see a similar test run in a room treated for best image, e.g. Sheldon's room. You know, that is a good point, and we probably should look into doing that. I will bring that up to Jonathan. Jonathan watches a lot of these streams, so Jonathan, if you hear this, that may be something we want to look at, because your room's great, but the velvet in Sheldon's room, I think, may make the NZ500 better in some aspects. But it also may make the LS 12,000 better because you're enhancing all of it. But you are washing out a lot of what the NZ500 brings to the table with its native, especially when you're getting down that low. Big Street Cinema says, really enjoyed the NZ500 ride 2 weeks ago. Good. Glad you're enjoying it. It's a great projector. Fantastic projector. Its only drawback is it's got 3. Motion, light output. Maybe there's only 2. Doesn't do 3D anymore. Motion, light output. Oh, 4K 120. That was the third one I was looking for. Paul says, I would like to see the LS9000 and the Valerian have a baby. Epson chassis and Valerian technology. I don't know why BenQ doesn't do this. I don't know. Somebody was saying, I think MW was saying that there's a new Hisense projector that does 6,000 lumens. So I'd be really interested to see that and what that does. I'm not a fan, though, of not having motorized lenses. I think I've been spoiled too long. And these projectors, I don't think I'm their target market. I don't like not having motorized lenses. It makes setup and flexibility a little bit more difficult in my eyes. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But if you can get around that, they're great projectors. Nice PJ episode. What gear do you have in your room that displays SPL Live? Which microphone software? And then through your HDMI matrix. So there is a measurement microphone in there connected back to a audio interface that plays into my server, and it reads out everything in smart. So the measurement microphone that is in there is calibrated to actual SPL. So it's reading what SPL is at that position. I don't have it in the main listening position. It's back toward the back. So it may be a little not accurate. But I can pull up smart and look at the incoming RTAs and spectrographs and SPL live as they come in. I don't run it through the HDMI matrix. I mean, it technically does because it goes through the server, but I can just pull it up on a laptop. I don't have to put it on screen. Going to add the MadVR core next year. Good. It's a good piece. It'll help enhance virtually really any projector, any display on the market. It'll just make it better. Not only in display, in processing, but you've got nonlinear stretch, you've got aspect ratio of control, you've got gaming modes now where you can apply a lot of this to gaming, high output, high input for frame rates. You've got now coming dynamic subtitle optimization where we can actually manipulate, move, and change the subtitles. I mean, you've got a ton of different things that you can do now. People have a tendency to focus on the video processing aspect where it's just HDR. So much more than that now. That's bread and butter, but it brings way more to the table that makes it more of a benefit to everything overall. I'm going to bring the chat in now. Be good for your setup. Now, topic of today's stream was speakers and compression. So we're pivoting now away from projectors. I think it's good that we talked about that, though, because those were my thoughts. Valerian crew is probably going to come in here and hate me because they don't like me very much. But I think it's a great projector, especially for the money. For $3,000, fantastic projector. If you can't see the RBE. Something was going on with, I voiced that earlier, but for the money, good stuff. Okay, speakers and compression. I think this is overlooked in a lot of facets. And there was kind of an argument going on in a thread where somebody had said that they wanted to have the cinema feel. And I said, you've got to get the correct speakers for that application then. And I think there is this misunderstanding or not thinking about how few speakers can actually do that. Almost every speaker that people think about is going to compress at a lower volume, lower than people think. Let's talk about Kef. Kef is a great speaker. Kef is not what I would call a cinema speaker. It's not going to do cinema level SPL. It's just not. That's not what they're designed to do. And I think they know that's not what they're designed to do. I would pick a Kef all the time if I wasn't after that level of SPL. It's a fantastic, objectively designed speaker. But I'm picking on it because of that was the speaker that was mentioned in this particular thread. It was the Kef R3 Meta. And looking at its specs, it's very low sensitivity. It's in the 80s. And then its maximum SPL output is 110 dB. And remember that SPL statement is usually at a peak. It's not, as far as I've seen, an average. It's usually like a peak at X frequency. And I'm not smart enough to know what that frequency is. I'm sure Aaron does. I'm sure Matt does. I'm not smart enough to know. But that does not mean it's going to play that at all frequencies. It won't. It means that above your crossover, probably in like the, 200 hertz range, maybe up, that's where you're going to be getting that 110 dB. So if you're trying to deal with your crossover, it's going to hit that point and it's going to start falling off like this, which creates problems down low because you're going to create all kinds of compression. So I think it's really important to look at the objective data if you are chasing this type of experience. If you're not after reference volume, and I say THX reference, I know that's the big boys of the industry kind of don't like that, but if you're chasing huge amounts of SPL, let's just call it that. And THX reference historically was 85 average, 105 dB peak. If you're chasing that at the reference seating position, a lot of these speakers are not for you because you're going to run into compression. Because remember, with every doubling of distance, you're losing 6 dB. Now, you're going to get some of that back through room gain and SBIR and other things, but you're going to be pushing that speaker to its limits. And that does not even include if you're EQing the speaker. Because if I'm boosting a little bit, let's say I'm boosting 3 dB. If I'm boosting 3 dB or 5 dB and the speaker's already at playing 106 because it's sitting super close to you, 106 dB. It's like within a meter of you. Well, now with EQ, I'm technically shooting over its limit. And I'm already compressing at that 106, significantly down low. So people also don't take into effect or account EQ and what you're going to do through PEQ, what you're going to do through auto EQ, room EQ, all that stuff. They don't take that into account either. That is going to go on top of what you typically listen at, which can very easily, unbeknownst to you, send you over the edge. And people were kind of in disbelief that I had said, I know several people that have blown UniQ drivers because I have. And because they've gotten those speakers to use within a certain experience, then their experiences change and they want higher SPL and they go pop. And there's nothing wrong with that. Kef makes an amazing speaker. You just need to make sure, especially if you're chasing these higher SPLs, that you get speakers that can do what you're asking of them. And you want to have headroom in order to do that. But as a caveat here, I will say that those volumes are insanely loud. They are very loud. And it's not great on your hearing to be listening at those volumes. I mean, I have tinnitus. A lot of the guys that have been in the industry for a long time have tinnitus. So just know that it's probably better to not listen at that volume. It's better for your health, not necessarily better for the enjoyment, but better for your health. Absolutely. So take that into consideration. Um, certain tweeter types are going to do a lot better at that and things that you need to consider. But the number of options that you're going to have if you're trying to chase that is going to diminish significantly if you're trying to do it correctly, because a lot of people misconflate things being too loud for it actually being too much distortion. So it's distortion that's creating this bad experience. The MadVR Experience Center, I can go many dB above reference. My reference in that room with my subs is around 130. So normal reference is 115. My SPL meter is reading 130 calibrated for what I'll call reference on certain clips, because I don't change the volume. So we're far above reference at that point. And people do not complain that it's too loud. It's dangerous because you don't have the distortion. So your ears are like, yeah, this is fine, until a couple days later and they're ringing, because it's like being at a rock concert, super loud, super clean, because there's no distortion in those speakers. So that is the warning. The other part of this that I think people don't look at a lot is on that same CEA 2034 is a sound power a lot of times. And the sound power, you've got your directive and off axis, a lot of times sound powers. And you want them to be uniform. They're not going to stack on top of each other because your off axis is going to be lower in power than the on axis a lot of times. But you want them to be uniform, meaning you want them to follow the same track. And the reason the sound power is important is because sound power is going to really show you how that speaker behaves on its first reflection point. So if the sound is differing a lot, if that sound power plot line is differing from on axis and off axis frequency response or power level, however we want to say it, if it differs, our ears are tuned to pick that up. If it's the same, meaning your on axis and off axis, especially that first reflection, is the same, our ears are tuned to ignore it. And it'll actually broaden the sound stage a bit. And it'll become pleasant. So if it differs, that's usually when you're going to want to treat your first reflection point. If it's the same, while you may want to absorb it, potentially, depending on what you're trying to do, diffusion may also be an option to create a wider, even still soundstage. So I think it depends on how you want to go about this. And that sound power from the CEA 2034 is a very important aspect to look at. So don't ignore it. Do not ignore it. Nobody's asking questions. Everybody's just listening. Everybody was engaged about the projector comparisons, but not engaged about the speaker comparisons. So I've started posting when I'm actually going to go live and what the topics are going to be. So we'll be able to use that, I think. They should be scheduled on YouTube. So if anybody has any other topics, I think I am putting them on. And I do listen because sometimes I can struggle to put them up myself. I did get a chat or a text message from one of my customers. And he had mentioned, so we talked a while ago about remotes. And the remotes, he suggested the universal remote for iPhone. It's an app. And I think it looks really cool. He said he's tried Crestron, C4, Harmony, all these remotes, and he's never really been happy with them. And he said that this app does very well. So if anybody wants to give that a shot, it's universal remote for iPhone. They had a lot of equipment that you could use. I can't use it because the majority of the stuff in my rack is not in there, which is going to create problems. I can maybe get around one or two by creating my own, but having that amount missing, I'll just stick with home theater web remote unless I can confirm that all of that's in there. Like the Storm Audio and then Charnoff were missing. Shelly was not there. Kaleidoscape was, but I don't know if this remote controls, if it's two-way and it'll control the lights up and down when Kaleidoscape starts playing and stops playing. So great another option. And I'm all for apps and things like that that you can run on an iPhone or an iPad or Android device, because it limits the amount of hardware that's in there and that you have to worry about. So shout out to John for bringing that up. Thanks for mentioning that. And if anybody has stuff like that in the past or in the future, don't hesitate to send them to me, because I will bring them up on stream to let people know. I think that's really important. Big Street Cinema says, when I got my this year JBL M2 with all the power you ever need, I'm playing way higher, but it doesn't feel so. When you hit mic over 120, can't measure anymore, and no distance. Yeah. And that's the danger. When you get to speakers that are truly capable of what you're asking of them, it stops being or feeling as loud. And it becomes kind of dangerous, because you do have problems when you get into that level of SPL. Your ears are going to compress. You can create damage. So do it at your own risk. But this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. We misconflate loudness or distortion for loudness. And a lot of times what we're complaining about when your spouse says it's too loud, it's distortion. My wife now actually listens. Typically when we turn on a movie, we're like -5, which in some movies is reference, but it doesn't sound as loud because there's no distortion. So I challenge all of you, when you're saying it's loud in your system, get an SPL meter, an actual SPL meter, not your phone, because the phones can have problems, and measure what your peak is. Not your average. Put it on peak, and it'll stay on your peak. And listen to a really loud scene and see what it does, and see how loud things are actually getting. And it'll be really informative to you determining a pathway on what you need to do going forward. If it's not actually all that loud, and be honest with yourself. Don't try and be like, oh, how far can I take it? When it starts becoming too loud, look at the SPL meter. When it's too loud for me, I'm in like over 130. 135 is where it's too loud for me. And even then, it's really just because I know it's bad. It's not necessarily because it's too loud for my ears. It's because I know I shouldn't be doing that. And I know if my wife saw that, she would shoot me. So I turn it down at that point. And I don't listen to all of this stuff at 130. It's not hitting 130 all the time. It's very dependent on content. Willie says, my problem with using a phone app for remote control is that I refuse to take my phone into the home theater when I'm watching. Oh, well, that's fair. What if you did, instead of buy a cheap iPod and put it on an iPod, or buy a really cheap iPad, like an iPad mini from 10 years ago, just keep it plugged in. Do that instead of using your phone. And then you don't have your phone in there. Then it's just a remote that happens to be an iPad or an iPod. Travis says, I have 4 HT18 V3s and I'm adding 4 SS1822 subs. I have shared space that I'm using in the corner of the basement for my theater. How do you determine where to place the subs with so many? I would start with REW, Room EQ Wizard, and use its designer tools and look at where it's estimating things will be the best. And it does a pretty good job. It's not bulletproof, but it will give you a pretty good idea of where things will be because it knows wavelengths. And as long as you know the decent dimensions of the room, now you can't take into account your absorption and materials and all that. So that's where it falls flat. But it will give you an idea of what you need to be doing and what general vicinities may be best for placement. So start there. Big Straight, it's when you're going to say something to the guy beside you, you hear how loud it is. Yeah, I'm not doing a whole lot of talking during that stuff. I get looks from customers like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," but we don't do a lot of talking in that. Is the best way to measure distortion with RU? The best way is to take sweeps at different volumes and compare where things are compressing and where the frequency is starting to erode away. I'm sure there's other ways, but that's the simplest way. The thing to be careful though about this is that when you start pushing to these volumes and you're inducing compression, you can damage your speaker. So be aware of that, that if you push too far, you can damage it. So it's advisable to do this in near field so that you don't overstress the speaker. I mean, you are overstressing it if you go into distortion, but you get my idea. I've been saving for an NV Core. I have a friend telling me I should get the Fury HD instead. Is there any benefit in choosing the NV? Fury? Oh. The NV's better. It brings more to the table. It's not just about HDR and tone mapping, though the NV will be better. That's not the only thing that it's about. If you get a Core, it brings so much more to the table. I mean, you've got, I talked about at the beginning, you've got nonlinear stretch, so aspect ratio control, screen boundaries, so you can contain everything into one container. So if you're on a 235 screen, all of your content fits. You don't have to do with lens shifting or zooming or any of that anymore. Dynamic subtitle optimization. The Core, you need the premium pack, but you're going to get dynamic subtitle optimization, which means you are now in control of what your subtitles look like. That's big. You can move them over top of the content so they don't have to be the black bars anymore. You're going to have gaming modes where you can get the tone mapping features now while you play games. The Core Mark II is going to have a 4K 120 with VRR input card. So now you're going to have VRR in and VRR out. The Mark I's not going to have that. You're going to have sharpening. You're going to have control over what the image looks like. So saturation, contrast, though you kind of have a little bit of control over that with your display, you've got way more of that control with your NV Core. You've got the ability to dial in how bright your display is so that NV knows exactly when it needs to be applying tone mapping. You have on the extreme, you have motion AI. So you have AI-based motion interpolation. And we're going to be releasing more, but you've got a lot. And the HD Fury isn't going to have all of that. So the Core is more expensive, but it brings a lot more to the table. A lot more to the table. I'm wondering how the Epson QB1000, QS100B 4K ultra short throw projector, what a mouthful, 4,500 lumens will compare to the others. Probably will not have good contrast. Historically, that projector has not had good contrast. Epson ultra short throws in general. So I'd hold my breath. I'm happy to see one. I think it would be good to have one at M-Wave. Epson is confirmed to be coming to M-Wave, and I will ask them to bring that projector. They got a room. They signed up. They're ready. I've got many vendors already that are like, yeah, we're coming. We just won't announce officially yet. We're working through some stuff with them, but we're moving. So if you guys want to come to M-Wave, it is going to be September 18th through the 20th at the Kansas City Convention Center. You can go to midwestaVexperience.net. We haven't announced it on AVS Forum yet because I'm waiting for some vendors to lock in so that we can announce it to people that I don't know. I think a lot of you guys may trust me a little bit, so you know I'm not just pulling out something out on you to try and get something, but we're locking in already, and I only announced this a few days ago to the vendors, so we're locking in. Vendors are excited. They're sending messages back and forth, but that's happening. So we're excited about it. The focus this year of M-Wave is we're going to do, I'm telling my vendors, don't go big. It's cool to go big. It's cool to see these Atmos theaters, but they're a pain in the butt to set up. And what's the takeaway from them? Aside from if you've never been in one, how cool it is. Not much, except experiencing something cool. So I'm telling my vendors, focus on the technologies, focus on the knowledge sharing of what people can take into the future to make their own experiences better. That's what I'm telling my vendors. And it allows them to stay smaller because we're only 2 weeks after CEDIA. So focusing on things like how does X, Y, or Z room EQ benefit in certain situations with subs in this position, subs in this position? How does it fit with full range speakers and being able to showcase that? Those kinds of things with fewer speakers. Maybe there'd be a bunch of subs in the room to show different configurations, but less overhead is what I'm pushing for. So not as sexy, but much more, I don't know how to put this, knowledge sharingly. That was terrible. But you guys get the idea. Ryan, how do you know if your speakers are clipping? Is it a sound? Is it distortion? Is it what clipping means? So clipping typically is it's compression. You can measure it. And your ears are going to hear it by telling you that it's bad. You don't like what something sounds, how something sounds. And it's difficult if you don't know what to listen to, like if you don't know what bad sounds like, which is okay. Once you get used to it, you can identify it. The easiest way is to measure it. Measure the frequency response at a lower volume where the speaker is just cruising, and then raise the volume and see if that response changes. And if it does, you're clipping. You're running into distortion. You're compressing. So and it's either your speaker, it could be your amplifier, it could be the preamp, because your preamp only has X amount of output voltage. So it's not necessarily just your speaker. Like in cases, your speaker could be outpacing your amplifier. It could be like, I want more power. And the amp doesn't have any more, and the amp's clipping. Or the preamp's clipping, depending on what your output voltage is, because you've boosted all of your SPLs. So you're at the hairy limit of what the preamp can output. And this is why preamps that have higher output voltages are typically better, because they have more flexibility between what they can output, and you have more flexibility to be able to boost output voltages and so on. So XLR brings this to the table over RCA. So it's those kinds of things that you'd want to be looking for. But measurements, simple measurements with REW back to back at different volumes will be pretty telling. Just know that if you raise volumes too much, if you're not doing this in the near field, you can cause damage. Any update on the Epson Q series 3000 and 7000 getting modified lenses? No. It takes more time than a few days, guys. More time than a few days. This is like multi-month process, if it even happens. So patience. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm assuming those guys reached out to Alan, but I don't know what's happening. They haven't updated me. Greg says, I'm planning on going to M-Wave again. Good. It's worth it. It's a good time. It's fun. I think you'll enjoy it. I enjoy it. AVS has been a great partner. I think it's going to be less stressful this year. I hope. So we'll get there. But this seems like a good wrapping up point. Our next stream, let me see if I can do this. Is he going to let me go here? Our next stream is going to be the 10th. It'll be contrast versus brightness. And it's going to be my personal opinion on all of that, on what I think is beneficial and how far you need to go personally. But we'll talk about that on the next stream. The next stream is going to be Monday on the 10th. Oh, Gafido says, so at M-Wave, there won't be home theater rooms to hear how JTR said. Oh, I'm not saying there won't be. I'm telling the vendors, don't focus on this. Don't make this a PP measuring contest. So, because it's a lot of work to do those rooms. It's a lot of overhead. It's really expensive because that gear is not new anymore. So JTR may do it. Some other brands may do it. I don't know. I'm simply saying, hey, we're really close to Cedia. I know you guys are going to be tired because Cedia, it takes it out of you. You guys are going to be tired. I get it. If you want to come, be small. Don't feel like you have to go big. I'm whole on board if you want to go big. But big, it's stressful, it's expensive, and I don't know what the ROI is for the vendors, because it's cool to go into those rooms, but what is the takeaway for that to the future? Aside from it's cool. What knowledge do you have that actually benefits to say, hey, do this, don't do that? There's no real learning in a lot of those experiences, because it's demo, change groups, demo, change groups. And you don't have the time to explain and teach and do things. And that's what I want people, the vendors, to focus on, and the industry professionals to focus on, is teaching. Because I think that's really important, and something no other expo show or anybody else does, is provide things that people can take away. We focus on relationships, right? We focus on the experiences. But I want those experiences to be something that can be put in practice at home in your own spaces, instead of, hey, this is cool. If you really want the dedicated theaters, we are doing the VIPs. We're getting closer to announcing those. We're just getting the time slots locked in. You can do those and see actual Atmos theaters in people's homes. You got to pay for those, but I think those are way better experiences than the ones at M-Wave because they sound way better because the rooms are meant for that. They're not in conference rooms. So that's what I would do. Any plans to host these podcasts in audio format somewhere? I like listening in the car, but YouTube app isn't good for keeping up with which podcasts I've watched. That's more work, Emmy. I'm lazy. I'll look into that. Maybe there's an auto way to do that. I'll have to look at that. But I'll see. I've done that in the past. I know AVS. Eric does that with our AVS podcasts. I'll look into that. I'll ask Eric how he does that. That would be good. I should do that. I used to do that. But then I get lazy and I forget. It's not always laziness. Sometimes I forget. But you guys get the idea. So next stream will be on the 10th. It'll be on Monday. It'll be about native contrast versus brightness and which way to go. We'll probably roll interesting into there. I got my modified lens back, not mine, my customers. So I'm going to be testing that probably today and tomorrow to see how that goes. So be looking for that. Hopefully it's better. He went a little bit more aggressive. By a little bit, I mean a lot of bit more aggressive. So hopefully it makes a big deal, and I'll be more excited to get mine because I'm ready. I want the extra native. I think 10,001 native with 300 nits. Sweet spot, baby. Sweet spot, baby. And the Griffin, I know it can do it. I'm getting somewhere between 5,200 and 5,700 to 1 at 300 nits right now. And I know the modification can do it. And I know I've got the headroom to do it. So we'll see where we go. We will see where we go. But ME, I'll take your suggestion accordingly and see if I can get these into audio only podcast format, because I should, at least on Spotify or something. I need to do that. We'll see. So you guys got the idea for the next podcast stream. It'll be on Monday. Not sure when the AV experience what will be this weekend. It'll probably be, could be tomorrow, could be on over the weekend if we do one, because we already did one on Monday. But we'll see from that. If you guys need any equipment, have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. I try and do the best I can for pricing. Also be aware that there is a sales sheet. So if you type !sales in chat, it will link you to the current sales that I know of that are going on in the industry. If you know of any sales, comment on this video, not in chat. Comment on the video and let me know with a sale that we can add, because I do like tracking them so that you guys have your dollar goes the furthest. But if you guys need anything or have any questions, any type of equipment, you can see all the brands that I'm a part of on the partners section of the website. I can get you taken care of. And if you find a lower price on the internet, I will do my best to match it. But yeah, if you guys need anything, let me know. We'll get you taken care of. It takes a second, Travis. Let's see if there it is. Hey, the bot is working. We'll go from there. I will see you guys probably this weekend, or if not, I'll see you again on Monday for the next solo experience stream about native contrast and brightness. Enjoy your weekend if I don't see you before then. Oh, I am on a stream for the home theater podcast with Don and the other guys. I think we're doing a tour of my theater, of the MadVR Experience Center. So if you guys want to tune into that tonight, I think that airs at 8:30 Central. Maybe it's 7:30. I don't know. We'll go through that and have some fun. So stay safe. Enjoy your home theater journeys. And I will see you guys next time.